All right, wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Again, thanks for everyone for coming out to Aupuni Center. If anyone isn't sure why they are here, today we are having a public hearing, basically a public meeting in lieu of a public hearing which should be held by the U.S. Army Garrison Pohakuloa. This is in response to the Incorporated Cultural Resource Management Plan that was just recently published, and the comment period is up on December 7th. Now, the environmental assessment of this cultural resources management plan produced a finding of no significant impact. And in a moment, I'll get into that a little bit more because it's outrageous, I know. But the reason that we're having this meeting and the Army won't is because under a finding of no significant impact, they are not obligated by law to hold any kind of public meeting, although they are holding public comments which they are accepting. This meeting is intended to be in conjunction with a meeting, pretty much almost identical meeting over in Kona at West Hawaii Civic Center tomorrow at 5:30 for the same purpose. Now, I do not really have any kind of presentation aside from my own testimony that I'll be submitting about the Integrated Cultural Resources Management Plan. Again, the purpose of this meeting is mainly to collect testimony. Also, I do want to mahalo the kids from the law school that came out for this and showing a student-produced film afterward, depending on how many folks do end up testifying. I also want to mahalo Molu'aina, Jim Albertini, and Ruth Aloha over in Kona, who will be also holding a meeting. I also want to say mahalo to County Council member Jan Ruggles, who helped us to get this room. I'm not the county, I wouldn't have been able to secure this room for us. Also, part of the reason that we were having it here as compared to in the school cafeteria or any other location is primarily because I believe members of County Council and the Public Relations Officer for Pohakuloa training area were invited to these, but you know, whether so Councilmember Ruggles will not be able to make it, and no one should be surprised that the Army isn't here. Jim, would you like to say anything before we begin?
Yeah, mahalo everyone for coming. We'll get into the testimony shortly, but I did bring some literature on the table, and one of the things you know out of tonight is this DVD is going to be made of this evening to submit to the Army, but encourage your friends. There's on the flyer is the email address that they can send in testimony. So be sure to spread the word more than just beyond this evening. And there's also one flyer there about the Navy had an environmental impact statement hearing a week or two ago, and that comment period is still open, I believe, to December 12th. So you can send in comments there about their sonar and bombing plans in Hawaii, how it's going to affect marine life as well as people, land, and sea. So those are the key things, and I think we should just get on with the testimony. Let the people speak. So thanks.
Would you introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry about that. Aloha everyone, my name is Pua'ena An, and I wrangled everybody up to get this, decided to take the lead on this when our friend Ruth said that she was going to be doing a Kona meeting. So I guess we have her to thank, and if anyone wants to go out to Kona tomorrow evening over at West Hawaii Civic Center, again from 5:30 to pretty much till pop. Oh, one other thing that I did want to mention, one major difference that's going to be going on tonight from most testimony sort of meetings and whatnot, that we will not be limiting you to 3 minutes. I will probably wave my hand when we get to about 5, but you know, take your time, but not too much. Let's enjoy the time that we have. It's going to be a little bit more than usual, but let's also be mindful of everyone else. Also, well, really quick, before we begin, for all the HA students, how many of you folks know what Pohakuloa training area is? That's majority of everybody? Okay, good. Would anybody like to tell me what goes on up there, of those of you who do know?
Bombing?
Yes, correct. Bombing, all kinds of military training. That's where they, one of the locations that they host the Impact exercises. Also, another issue, while you guys, especially at your age, need to know about this place. They're not just bombing our sacred, the Aina itself, which is sacred, but also archaeological sites, Hilo, there's Kupuna up there, not to mention the Army has been testing depleted uranium up there and depleted uranium munitions. When you get home, Google depleted uranium and find out what that is and what we're all breathing in, especially when we pass through that area. Okay, really quick, one last thing before we actually bring on the testimony and the first testifier. I'd like for everybody to Kuluna, Tapo, stand up please. Please, we'll start this out right.
Oh yeah, please turn off your cell phones, everyone.
Sorry about that. Just to remind me that I'm testifying. So, I suspect that this may be seen by some of our military people, and I hope that they don't misunderstand. I'm very concerned about both the people of this community, Hilo, with regard to what's going on in Pohakuloa right now. But I'm also concerned about the people who are closest to what's going on there. The military itself is endangering the folks who are unemployed up there, the employed of the U.S. government. In particular with the amount of PU that's up there. And recently it's been documented that there is much more than the Army ever applied license for. And I hope that, no, it's more than hope. I think I have the right as a citizen to demand that all care be taken for everyone who's exposed to this, to be treated in a healthy way. The military is is a part of our society, and respect is something our society preaches. They expect us to respect what they're doing, and we expect them to respect the land, the culture, and the world we live in. One particular thing, the most recent thing that has come to my attention is the strategy the military seems to be taking and using the land to develop. And the strategy of promulgating fear. We're going to have a warning sound tomorrow because of, I'm not sure what, the idea is to create as much fear as possible, it seems, and I'm protesting that here and now. Each bomb that falls up there creates more fear, not security. And I'm demanding that stop now, and that respect for the people here and for all the work that's gone into preserving a safe place for us to be is respected. So my testimony is, please respect, or I demand that respect be given to this land. Thank you.
Oh yeah, folks, we will not be handing over any list of names or anything like that to the Army, so please introduce yourself at the beginning of your testimony. That's the only time they're going to hear your name. And also, if you are representing the organization, please indicate.
My name is Donna Grable. I rode my bicycle, even though there's flooding. Please raise it was very close, but please raise your hand if you live like 20 minutes away from here. Let's see. Okay, no, and more than 20 minutes. Okay, so this is really far, and thank you so much for coming out tonight, because the roads are really crowded, and we're doing our part as a community. And this is what Commander Christopher Marquez asked of us when we met with the military at Pohakuloa training area. We had a meeting. He says, we have to go through our state legislators. We have to go through the process, because they don't make the decisions that we politicians do. So we're doing our part. Thank you. So I'm going to just kind of reiterate some things that were already said. The reason why we're here is because the U.S. Army garrison of Pohakuloa is seeking public comment on its 2017 draft cultural resource management plan regarding the thousands and thousands of acres of Pohakuloa training area. And this document has one really weird clause in it, and that's, we have to stand up against this. It says, the document states, the general objective of the Cultural Resource Management Program are to eliminate impacts to the military mission arising from cultural resources. That's pretty tricky. What do they mean by that? Cultural people that stand up to the military? I'm not really sure. The objective of the Cultural Resource Management Program are to eliminate impacts to the military mission arising from cultural resources. So despite these, and then despite these adverse impacts to archaeological resources and sacred sites, the environmental assessment concluded a finding of no significant impact. So there's even, there's burial grounds and Abu's hay house out there. And they have it all documented, these cultural sites. For this reason, the USAG Pohakuloa has declined to hold public meetings and is not legally obliged to do so under the FONSI, despite active public outreach having been included as an implement in the objective of ICRIMP. So the last thing I want to say is thank you, Jen Rickles, for making this possible. And so also our cameramen, they're volunteering, and they're going to send the tapes. So they're making a DVD of this so they can see the community is here. What is civilization? We never really experienced, our humanity has only experienced through the past militarizations. Even the kings had their bodyguards and power and control. Maybe democracy is an illusion, but we can get there, we can. And it's from the community, it's from bottom up. We can't sit back and because this is how we get in messes. So, a real civilization is when everybody has basic shelter, everyone in the world has food. These are basic human rights. That the militaries are become, instead of militaries of war, militaries of peacekeeping. And no more violence. Thank you.
And I'm Jim Albertini of Malu Aina. And this thing stays up here. I want it to stay here, but I want to refer to notes. But I don't know if anybody else had trouble. I tried to go to the website last night and today. It was blocked out. Couldn't get in. Now, I don't know whether I was alone or other people had it, but I got to the site about a week ago and reviewed it, but I wanted to go back in more detail last night. But a couple of things that caught my eye. First of all, that statement that Donna quoted, that mission is trumping cultural resources. That's backwards. This should be looking at military impacts to cultural resources, not cultural resources impacts to a military mission. This is an EA on cultural resources. Now, a couple of things that caught my eye is one that no religious sites have been designated at Pohakuloa as of November 2016. No religious
Sacred sites.
sacred sites. Sacred sites. Now that's very strange because that whole area, Pohakuloa, means the land of the night of long prayer. And we know that there are very special places up there, all the pū. And again, there's the Umi Heiau over near Pu'ulalai, that whole area, Mauna Kea, Mauna Loa, Pu'ulalai, that whole heavenly realm as it's defined. And it's very interesting. It's also interesting to note that the military claimed they've been bombing for 70 years. And they've surveyed less than 1/3 of the 132 or 133,000 acres. What have they been doing for 70-some years other than bombing? They certainly haven't put culture priorities up there on the list. Now, Julie Ta'omio, who is the cultural person, has been up there since, I believe, 1995, so over 20 years. She, in a meeting that we had with her last December 19th at Pohakuloa, she said they've identified 1,200 cultural sites. 1,200. That's on, of course, the 1/3 or less than 1/3 of the base that's been surveyed. So it's certainly reasonable to believe that if they did a complete survey, there'd be several thousand cultural sites. But again, the mission is the priority. So I've been dealing with these commanders that change every 2 years up there now for over 30 years. And things are getting worse and worse in terms of stonewalling the community. And the lack, they use phrase of dialogue and listening and hearing one another, but it's been getting worse and worse. I think certainly Trump contributes to a climate of this kind of thing too. But it's the military themselves. When I look back over all these different commanders now, the best one that we ever had was a woman, an African-American woman commander. Her name was Warleen Richardson. And she really attempted some kind of dialogue with the community. Maybe it's because of her background. But she even brought her boss, the garrison commander for all of Hawaii, to Malawaina. I remember it on Veterans Day. It would have been about 2010. And we had a meeting. There were about 20 or 30 of us there, mostly Kanaka Maoli. And one of the people brought up the resolution that called for stopping all live fire and cleanup of depleted uranium. And the commander, the colonel, the full colonel from Oahu, he kind of backhanded that comment and said, it's only a resolution. And one of the Kanaka Maoli said, you know, the Newlands resolution that supposedly annexed Hawaii, it was only a resolution. And that's when the commander pounded the table and said, stopping live fire is not going to happen. So it was very clear that in his judgment, the voice of the county council, or the state, or anybody else was subservient to the military. I want to mention one other thing that Shelley brought to our attention that I actually forgot about. Hawaii had a constitutional convention in 1978. And I was on Oahu teaching school over there. And I brought up, and we tried to get an outright ban on nuclear power plants for Hawaii, and also nuclear waste being disposed of in Hawaii. And we couldn't get an outright ban. I remember Jerry Harris, who was the mayor of Honolulu later on, he was in that con-con, a powerful commission. I was just a citizen raising concerns. But what we did get out of that, it's written into the state constitution, that before nuclear waste could be disposed of in Hawaii, or a nuclear power plant, commercial plant could be built, it would require 2/3 vote of both houses of the legislature. Now, the military at Pohakuloa has a license to allow the depleted uranium to remain in place. Now, if you have a license to allow garbage to remain in place, that's my definition of a dump.
Right.
So if you're allowing the DU to be remain in place and not cleaned up, it's violating the state constitution. But again, besides that DU resolution we got passed about stopping live fire and this state constitution thing, Hawaii County, you know, was the first municipality in the entire United States to pass a law declaring itself a nuclear-free zone, 1981. And for 3 years, we politely asked the Navy to stop bringing in its nuclear ships. We didn't know about the DU at Pohakuloa at that time. And they refused. And then we finally said we're going to have a swimming blockade of the warships. And the day before the ship arrived, Steve Yamashiro, who was the county council chair at the time, passed emergency legislation that I'm sure violated the Sunshine Law requirements of hearing, 6 days notice on hearing. And they put an amendment on that nuclear-free law to exempt the military. It's like having a no-smoking law and exempt smokers. So we went forward to uphold the nuclear-free law. We entered the water in protest with the warship coming in, and I was given 3 years in prison for that. But I don't want to go into details. I only spent a year, thank goodness, was kicked out because of international protest. But 2 years later, that was '84, 2 years later, we got on the ballot an effort to repeal the amendment to exempt the military. And apparently, the Chambers of Commerce and Steve Yamashiro, who was running for mayor at the time, they knew we were going to win and take the amendment away, restore the nuclear-free law. And Yamashiro dumped in thousands of dollars from his mayoral campaign into this partisan ballot issue. And we lost by less than 1/2 of 1%. And the courts declared that him putting mayoral campaign funds into a partisan issue was illegal, but the deed was done. So I mean, this is a little history of efforts to deal with nuclear efforts in Hawaii. I just wanted to give you. But let me just emphasize a few other points out of this, this particular thing on Pohakuloa. And again, I think I said Marquez, he's a personable person, but in terms of his dealing with us, he stiffed us on so many occasions of opening up public access, to have a ceremony at Pu'ukapele, an ahu that was built 10 or 15 years ago by Rural Order and other people, to give us the same kind of access there that they give to the Chamber of Commerce. See where the drone field, there's a special drone field up there. And again, one thing that's totally absent in this EA, and that's why I think we need to call for a full EIS, because to understand impacts to cultural resources, you have to know the impacts that are taking place up there. Now, they've been bombing for 70 years, and the last figure that we had was during the Stryker EIS. They said that 14.8 million live rounds a year are fired up there. Everything from small arms up to heavy bombing. And one thing I think very few people are aware of here, that B-52, B-1, and B-2 bombers from Missouri, from Louisiana, from Guam, fly non-stop, bomb at Pohakuloa, sometimes from up 30,000 feet. Never touch down, refuel in the air, and go back to their places, Missouri, Louisiana, and Guam. Now, we have to know how many live rounds a year are taking place up there. What kind of weapons are being fired up there? Are there other DU weapons that have been fired besides the Davy Crockett? That's the one they acknowledge, because they were caught with that one. So I would urge everybody, and we need to press them on facts and figures. What are your impacts, so that we can really assess impacts to cultural resources? So the fact sheet I put on the table there of Pohakuloa is just 11 points about some of the things. But we need to, as citizens, demand answers to questions that the citizens have. I've been asking questions of commanders up there now for decades. Even did formal Freedom of Information Act requests that they refused to answer. Something's very, very wrong in this process, you know. So we should tolerate an environmental assessment that says, as Donna quoted, and I want to read it again. The general objectives are to eliminate impacts to the military missions arising from cultural resources. Should be the other way around. You know, that's the key issue for me. So a full environmental impact, and I would say we push what the county council called for back in 2008. Stop all live fire, clean up your mess, and develop an exit plan. We want to see an exit plan for PTA. Not more.
Steve?
The bathroom is locked.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's okay.
Where you want the puddles forming?
I have another one, that's good. It's coming down. Another one.
Okay. Sorry, it's a loner. Steve? No, they stretched out. Yeah.
Aloha. My name is Steve Murakami, and I'm the proud principal of the Hawaii Academy of Arts and Science. And, we have many students here this is outside of their school day, and they came to be active in this movement. I thank all of you You know, in this education job, a lot of times my job is to inspire and influence young people. This particular instance, our young people inspired and influenced me. In September, 10 of our students went over to Pohakuloa to perform some rebuilding trails, archaeological sites, and of course to try and replant some of the damage that had been done over the decades of bombing in Pauahi. Well, before they returned to the Big Island, it was such an impact for them to see all the damage, that irreversible damage that was done on that island, and it made an impact on them. And before they left the island, they made a pact among themselves to bring the knowledge that they learned back and apply it to the Big Island. And they came back and they shared their experiences. They made a pretty nice video that we're going to watch later. And they actually assembled their student body, and they presented what they learned on Kauai, all the damage, and about the broken water table, about how it'll never return to the state that it was before. And they say that, hey, you know what, we got something on this island. You know what, nobody lives on Kauai. Nobody lived there when they're bombing. But they're bombing our island. We live here. Yeah. We're residents here. They're bombing where we live. How's that? Oh. And this made such an impact on them. I'm so proud of them to, you know, this isn't something that adults tell children. This is their initiative. This is totally their initiative to come here and to start and to spread the word. And their mission now is to join with other students to spread the news and to spread it island-wide, maybe statewide, on what's happening. I'm going to tell you how important this is, because Jim and I, we're the same age. We're in our 70s. And we need this kind of young energy to carry on this, because we're not going to sell this tomorrow or next year. Who knows how long it'll take. But if we have committed citizens rising in our midst that will carry on this battle forever, someday the right will be, it'll be Pono at Pohakuloa. And that's what the future lies in these young children. And I think that I'm really inspired by them. I'm really influenced by them. You know, one of our duties in education is to make them aware of what's happening to the environment, to the world, to the climate, to what's happening around them. And one of the things with learning about the environment is the word irreversible damage. The extinction of, we're the ground zero for extinction of animal species. We're ground zero. Once it's gone, it's gone. I have seen so much irreversible damage in my years, and I grew up at Makua. Anybody know where Makua Valley is? A beautiful valley, beautiful beach in front of it, and they've been bombing that since I was a kid. When I was in my 20s, I found out about the bombing on Kauai, and I got involved with the original Protect Kauai Ohana group that still exists. In fact, they sponsored the trip to Kauai for our students. And we're committed to going back. We're committed to going back. And now here we are at Pohakuloa. Sacred land being bombed. What are we going to do about it? And like Jim said, we are the seas. These students are the seas. We got to make people aware. A lot of people don't know. All you have to do is drive over the saddle during the summertime, and you'll see all the bombing, and you feel it. You hear it, you feel it. And this is an outrage. There's a community very nearby called Waikiki Ranch. There's a lot of really yuppie homes out there. Rich people live up there. But little did they know that they would be living right next to a bombing range. So I applaud the students. I know that there was a student, speaker that was going in front of me, and but I guess he's checking out. But I'm just proud of all of you. And you'll see some of the inflections in the film. So I thank you, students, for coming out, taking your time. I thank all of you dear citizens, and I just want you to know that we have some committed young citizens to carry on this work.
Okay, that was actually my mistake. I guess his name wasn't scribbled out. Christopher, is it? All right. Hello, I'm Christopher Rosenbaum. So I'm one of the 10 people who went on the Pohakuloa trip. Other guys, can you guys like raise your hand or something? All the other students are people who, by word of mouth, decided to come here and on their own initiative came here to watch this testimony. So I have two things to read. I have my own testimony, and I have a petition from our school that Kimmy wrote up, and Thea, which are the teachers who brought us here today.
What's your school?
My school is TOS, or the Hawaii Academy of Arts and Science.
Where is that?
That's in Pohakuloa. If I seem nervous, it's because I am. So, I'm 15 years old, and when we went on the Pohakuloa trip, I got to see firsthand the destruction that these bombs can do. I mean, there's craters, there's almost no plants on the island, there's a lot of struggle with erosion because of the bombing, and it'll be a long time before we see Pohakuloa get anywhere close to where it was. And I wanted to read a little excerpt from an environmental survey that was done at the time while bombing was still being done on Pohakuloa. And it's about the beneficial environmental effects of military use on the island. Ranging from the pulverization of the island soil, which made it amenable to the growth of vegetation, to the accumulation of rain runoff in bomb craters. Yeah, that kind of speaks for itself. With that kind of mindset of the military, how can we expect them to change? And with that mindset, they can explain anything away. And here on this island we have Pohakuloa, which is 9 times the size of Pohakuloa. And like Steve said, Pohakuloa has 0 residents. We live here, and they're blowing up our island. So, in closing to my personal testimony, I just wanted to say, please stop the bombing. And then, from what Thea and Kimmy wrote, we wrote up a petition. Do you guys know how many signatures we got, or estimate?
So far, but that's just since we started gathering on Monday. And we're going to keep gathering. We're going to give what we have to Jim.
Okay. If you guys want to sign a petition. We, the undersigned residents of Hawaii Island, humbly petition Governor David Ige and Mayor Harry Kim, our county and state representatives, and the courts to rule against the U.S. military's request to renew and expand their lease of the land in the Pohakuloa training area on Hawaii Island. We not only ask you to deny the renewal of the lease, but also to revoke the lease entirely based on the health and environmental risk posed
by the presence of depleted uranium within PTA. We believe that the U.S. military has been and continues to be dishonest and reckless with their contamination of Pohakuloa with DU. Continued bombing and artillery testing within PTA without any evaluation or monitoring of DU in the soil, wind, and water is unacceptable. We believe that the U.S. military has been and continues to neglect in addressing the health and environmental risks posed by the lack of cleanup and continued disruptions of the areas within PTA contaminating with DU and other toxins released or related to their activities. We are extremely concerned about the health and safety of our island communities, local residents, members of the military stationed here, and tourists, as well as the ecosystems of our islands. We believe that the U.S. military must cease and desist from further degradation of Pohakuloa until this issue is addressed. We consider our communities and our entire island to be in extreme danger. Please rule against any renewal or expansion of leased land to the U.S. military in Pauahi, and please consider revoking the lease entirely based on dishonest and dangerous use of Pohakuloa training area by the U.S. military. We believe the demilitarization of Pohakuloa is the best course of action for the future of our island home, and mahalo for your time.
Before we go on, I really want to mahalo Christopher and all you guys from Haas for coming out. Actually in these last few minutes, as I'm kind of listening to all this and looking at you guys sitting here, I'm actually stoked that you guys are here because, for the last, I don't even know how many years before, Mauna Kea happened, I remember being one of the only guys that's my age and looking around at a lot of these faces that I still see here. And actually, I tell this story every time I get a chance where Jim himself actually, I remember him asking me, where are all the young people? And I told him, I don't know, I hang out with you. But no, it's hugely important. And I remember what it was like when I was the only guy under 30, in a meeting about whether it's geothermal right down the road from you guys. That's how I know Steve actually is from when geothermal came back as an issue a few years ago. You guys all saw Mauna Kea blow up on Facebook and social media, Instagram, and everything. And in a few years, it's gotta be you guys. Because somebody has to care. Somebody does. And if nobody cares, then we lose everything. Or we stand to. Just real quick before we continue, I want to ask all you Haas kids, and this is a little bit off topic, but you guys listen to music, right?
Yeah.
How many of y'all listen to punk rock?
Yeah.
Y'all heard of Anti-Flag?
No.
Go on YouTube, go on Spotify, look up Anti-Flag. It'll inform several of your decisions over the next few years. I highly recommend it, especially you guys who are paying attention to me right now. Seriously. Okay, real quick. Before I got into the movement and all these things, when I was about your guys' age, I discovered punk rock, and that's what brought me home to my culture. Because there was a time there was, oi, 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 punk rock became cool, only pop, cool. You gotta find your way home, one way or another. So, and I just want to, impart that to you guys before we continue.
Buena, come on. Rap.
Corey?
Do a rap.
No, this isn't the time for that. Corey?
Aloha. We have some really awesome speakers tonight, so I really thank people for putting this together. I'm Corey Harden, and I plowed through the EIS. That's why I'm kind of cross-eyed tonight. I would say the plan has three major flaws, and it should be rewritten. The first flaw is the plan totally turns a blind eye to the illegal takeover of the nation of Hawaii. There's a very sanitized history section It says the Hawaiian monarchy was overthrown and the subsequent Republican government appealed to the U.S. for annexation, eventually succeeding. The plan should say that U.S. troops assisted in the takeover, that the nation of Hawaii never agreed to annexation, and that the U.S. and the military are illegal occupiers. That's like not there. The second flaw is the plan also turns a blind eye to the military's destruction of Native Hawaiian culture by actions that directly affect the culture, and also by destruction of the natural world to which Native Hawaiian culture is, deeply bound. The plan says nothing about the radioactivity in Pearl Harbor, the tons of hazardous old ordnance left on land and in the sea, the threat to the aquifer on Oahu from the Navy fuel tanks, the ongoing bombing and live fire, and I could go on for days, but there's lots. Some of the most brazen sanitized history is when they talk about tests in Ola'a Forest Reserve on this island in 1964 and other tests in 1966. They say nothing about the germ warfare agents, the hallucinogenic benzoic acid, and the sarin that were used in those tests, and about all the lies that were told to the public to cover up. And when the county found out they canceled the lease, the Army said, oh, we're doing weather tests up there. And it turns out they're testing all this, extremely hazardous stuff. County canceled the lease when they found out. The third flaw is that the surveys for cultural resources are inadequate. So there's really no valid basis for this plan. Only 1/5 of the Pohakuloa impact area has been surveyed for cultural resources. And I remember Moani Akaka, who has passed away recently, but a tremendous activist, talking about all the burials and cultural sites in the impact area where they shoot stuff in the impact area. They've been doing it for years, and they rarely clean anything up unless they want to, build more military structures. But, they don't know what's in there, and they've been shelling it for years. On the surveys, half of the areas outside this impact area, half of those have not been surveyed. That's about 62,000 acres. The plan itself questions whether past surveys were reasonable and in good faith. That's probably pretty sanitized. It's probably worse than that. And the plan itself said that older surveys need updating because they're less thorough than modern surveys. And even with all this not very good work, as Jim mentioned, they have found almost 1,200 archaeological sites. So who knows how many sites are undiscovered, and they're still, bombing and live fire. So they need to do thorough surveys for the whole area, and then rewrite the plan based on updated information. The mindset and the actions required to achieve death, destruction, and domination pull us away from nurturing the finely woven threads that connect us to the natural world and our cultural heritage. If we lose that connection, who won?
Michelle?
Aloha. My name, can you guys hear me? Yeah. My name is Michelle Prevos, also known as Shamadan. I live in Hakulau on the foothills of Mauna Kea. My message to the armed forces that practice their war games on our sacred mountain is simple. You are desecrating the land, very disrespectful to the earth that sustains us. And on top of that, we as humans living on this island have to breathe the polluted air that is created by the war games. Stop playing your games on our sacred mountain. We want peace. Can we focus on that instead of wars for greed that are happening as we speak all over the world, funded by our US tax dollars? No more. If we do not respect each other and our Mother Earth, we will become an extinct race. No more wars is always my prayer. Mahalo.
Thomas?
Yes, Tom.
Aloha kako. My name is Tom Brennan. I'm here because a lot of my students are here and other things. But primarily I'm here because I had the experience on Kaho'olawe with the students. But then again, I've been on Kaho'olawe for the last 25 years and I've been involved and I've seen it. And I was looking at this piece of paper and thanks Jim, for everything you do.
Yes.
And the thing that caught my eye here was 5 times the size of Kaho'olawe. And then I believe Chris said 9. I can believe that too. It's more than Kaho'olawe, for sure. And I started thinking about 5 times. Like 5 times what to get done? How much more do we need to work to achieve peace? To achieve stopping the bombing? This is why we're here, is to stop the bombing. Yeah? I mean, I know that's what I want. And I've been seeing it. Yeah? The first time I went to Kaho'olawe was 1990 when the bombing was first stopped on the island. And I was stoked. I was so like, whoa, this is exciting. I'm going to see hundreds of people show up. And it just so happened because of logistics or whatever, there was only 17 of us that showed up to celebrate the opening of Lo'onui Kamakehiki. That's the season we're in, gang. It's here. And so, that was my first experience. Going there, expecting hundreds, and seeing only a handful. Yeah? So I started thinking, 5 times. You guys gotta do 5 times more. 5 times more activism. 5 times more juice. 5 times more getting out there and making sure this gets done and taken care of. You know, the reality is, as much as I've been involved, yeah, I doubt very much if I would have been here tonight if you guys didn't come up and say, let's do this. Yeah? There's a saying, reactivate the activism. Yeah? And as far as me, my activism has kind of been, you know, but I've been doing it, thinking, well, this is where I need to stand, this is what I do, I teach, I'm in my community, I know people, all those kind of things. Yeah? And the reality is, I haven't been doing my 5 times more. I haven't been trying 5 times harder. I haven't been thinking, or as it said, do your homework. I haven't not working 5 times more to make sure that the bombing stops. Pretty simple. So the challenge, and the reason I'm here, because you guys are here, and I thank you for that, and I thank you for this rush that I'm getting now, because I understand activism. I understand what it takes. I've been there, but I've been away. I need to be back. All of us need to be back. And it can only happen if you guys continue to do 5 times more than what is required. And we, us guys, we still gotta continue what we think is 5 times. You know, we gotta do what we need to do. We're here, you guys are there. So all I'm saying is, stop the bombing. The military, you guys know you're wrong. They know. And I don't know why, you know, they continue to do what they do. Because even Mother Earth is speaking to them. Yeah? Even the Earth is telling them what's happening. But that's where it takes 5 times more. I like the 9 times, Chris. If it takes 9 times more, do it, guys. Don't hold back. Stay strong. I love you guys. Aloha.
Sato.
Masato?
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Scared.
Come on.
Well, hey. Aloha. Good evening. My name was Cole. I wasn't really prepared to make any statement, but I've been thinking about this Pohakuloa issue certain years now, certain years. And tonight, so what I'd like to raise some different angle in this problem. I have heard dozens of people and occasions. However, when you have some idea and then you believe it's good, but there's an opponent, and that's not good, and you face the opposition, but you have your sort of face, or faith, more like a face. You don't want to back down with your own good idea. So it's sort of a never-ending confrontations and not going particularly in any positive direction to come up with the mutual solution. So I don't know, I'm making myself clear, but I hope with the Pohakuloa, if we are able to come up with the counter offer, sort of, instead of you're doing bad, you're not doing good, or you're bombing us and you're giving us a dirty, polluted air, but instead of just, well, I'm not really, being negative to people who have been in this protesting, but if we can come up with some alternative, that they might stop thinking, they might start thinking differently. So, proposing some alternative, which could be somehow with the breakthrough. That's what I've been past a few months, and I have my husband here tonight with me, and he said, do I have any minutes limit or something?
No.
Anyway, okay, let me continue. He said, I know the good solution for this Pohakuloa. So I said, what is it? So he went on and on. And it sounds like far-fetched. No, that's too unrealistic. It's too, people wouldn't like it. But maybe he can share that with you tonight. So I will introduce my own husband. He can share his idea of alternatives with you tonight.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Is Paul okay with that? You all right with that, Paul?
Yeah.
If Michael jumping the line?
Yeah. Oh, you want to get it?
No, go ahead, go ahead. He got called up to have it.
I signed up. I signed it.
You okay with that, Jeff?
Yeah, well, I'll still get it over. Good evening. My name is Michael Ryan. That is my wife, Miss Uncle Ryan. And over the, I guess I certainly didn't plan on speaking tonight. I don't know whether you call this being snookered or not, but thank you, dear. Anyway, I'll make this very brief. We have two large problems in the state of Hawaii. One has to do with our growing homeless problem. The other has to do with a rather unwelcome presence of the military, particularly in PTA. It occurred to me that those lovely Quonset huts in PTA, the medical facility at PTA, and a number of other accoutrements at PTA, the mess hall, the feeding arrangements, and so on and so forth, might be very amenable to a large-scale solution to the homeless problem. One thing that would be required would be for our dear friends in the military PTA to pack up their suitcases and say bye-bye. So once they had departed, then the state of Hawaii could begin to turn this facility into a constructive purpose. And I guess that's basically the extent of my suggestion. There's some other wrinkles to it, but you get the basic idea. And I hope I didn't preempt any other speaker. Thank you very much.
This should be of interest to you inside. Yeah, you just sign it. Pardon me. Good evening. My name is Paul Peck. Many of you may have seen me on Naleo. In any case, perhaps I should start out with something that Albertini once said, why do we only rest in peace? We should live in peace as well. We have I would like to point out, the only chance we've got, because children are probably the only chance to change things, and they have to use the internet. Now here is a teenage girl at 15 years of age. It took her 2 years in Tanzania, that's Africa, to get clean water so they could go to school and not die of diseases. One way you can use the internet, not only on the social media, but you could very well on this island. And no one yet that I've spoken to, that I've encouraged to, besides one woman that once was over here, has ever taken advantage of the fact that you, as children, you may need an adult approval, can speak on internationally, worldwide, on Naleo TV. You can see what I say on Naleo by going to naleo.tv and check Hawaii Island Speaks Out, HISO, for every month. 4 times a week. This is on live on channel 54. It is worldwide on the internet by going to video on demand. You have to use the internet, and that's what these people have done. The young people, because young people in public schools are not permitted to learn real, true history. True history is forbidden in public schools. That's why I'm amazed, because your teacher said something about an anti-flag, or someone said something. Now that is where my problem started with my daughter at Mountain View High School.
She came from Nicaragua, a country that this country killed 62,000 Nicaraguans, equivalent to killing 6.2 million in this country to bring them democracy. And I requested that because of that, she not have to say the Pledge of Allegiance. At that time, they took her out of English as a second language, and she had won that at the University of Hawaii. They wouldn't let her participate in the second year because they said it wouldn't be fair. She won it in third grade. They wouldn't let her participate in fourth grade because it wouldn't be fair to the other students. She'd just keep on winning. That's what their excuse they used. So we have to teach peace in school, not just war. And I really think that the only chance we got, people will pay a lot more attention to young people. You have a lot more effect. Because, hey, the old people were just, you know, how much more longer, you know, I'm 78, you know, how much longer I'm going to be around. Just wait for them to die. I noticed this was from Trump's daughter. Why I disagree with Dad on global warming and so on. In any case, you know he's her assistant now. So anyway, that's pretty well, you know, what I could go on, but you could, I've already said what I wanted to say at Waiakea High School when the military actually did show up, and I talked for half an hour afterwards with the license, the civilian license, with the military. But as we see, it had no effect. Now this young girl took over 2 years to get the clean water in her village. You will take, as you were told, 5 times, maybe 4, much more than that. But you have to get numbers. Without numbers, you're not going to do it. You can't use just logic. You certainly can't use logic with the Department of Education. Thank you.
And then Shelley, you're up after Jeff.
Okay, my name is Jeff Shaw, and I'm sure that the people at Pohakuloa will be aware of me, but anyhow. These documents are more remarkable for what is left out of them than what was included. For example, in the section that explains the history of Pohakuloa, it almost skips entirely how Umi relates to it, despite the fact that Umi's heiau is only a few miles from the western boundary. If you look at that map that I posted there, you can see that. And there must be like stuff that, remnants of his time all over that place, but they refuse to acknowledge it. In another Army document, they allude to the human use of the Saddle region declining at this time. They probably know that the sacredness of the region is a factor. The ICRMP states that there are no sacred sites when in reality the entire area is sacred, and there are many sites that back it up. They refuse to accept any reality that contradicts their narrative that PTA is essential to national security. They even ignore the fact that one of the most active volcanoes on the planet looms over PTA, which is Mauna Loa. Who in their right mind would place an essential component for national security hours from a potential volcanic eruption? Does Bali have a training area essential to the Indonesian army, for instance? The most egregious omission is an explanation of how they plan to comply with all the various regulations inside the impact area. The question has been raised at consultations, and they can't pretend that there isn't a conflict. I was told by the commander that this would be an issue that needs mitigation, but this document doesn't go into that. They say in the process of the EA, only 2 alternatives were examined: implementing the ICRMP
or maintaining status quo. Is this an admission that the status quo is inadequate? Was the community involved in making this decision? I did see reference in the document that should have been the guideline that they followed. The Secretary of Interior standard for restoration. It states the standard is one of 4 distinct but interrelated approaches to the treatment of historic properties. Restoration depicts a property at a particular period of time in its history while removing evidence of other periods. I suggest they depict pre-1942 Pohakuloa and remove all evidence of PTA. While doing this, they can creatively use many of the tools at their disposal, such as drones and robotic vehicles, to fulfill training guidelines. Peace and stability can only happen when sovereignty is restored, and the military removing their rubbish is an important step to ensure that reality. We can no longer afford to live in a world where humans exert control by force. That was never a good option, but anyone with a clear mind can see that the insecurity that emanates from this paradigm is detrimental to the planet and human development. True security is when we no longer fear each other. Let's work together to achieve that dream by demilitarizing Hawaii. Another huge mission from the ICRMP is the interface with a living culture that feels the impact of every explosion at PTA, like it's targeting them personally. Please do what is right and love the Aina. Stop bombing Hawaii.
Shelley. And then Leila, you're up.
Hi, aloha. My name is Shelly Maka'ala Mahi Hanai. I wanted to really thank all the Haas guys for being here. My daughter actually went to Haas and it really changed her life. So thank you so much for being here. And as Jim mentioned, I just wanted to invite you right off the bat here. Yes, it's true. There is a CONCON convention about the 2/3 legislative vote. So we do have a, concerning the depleted uranium at Pauahi. So we have an ongoing ad working group going on, and I wanted to personally invite Haas to be involved in our process. And you can, I did give Steve a copy, has the lease, it has different things in it, the packet that, you can look over later. But, so I wanted to invite you to come up with, you can have a representative, you have a delegation, whatever you want to do, and to have interface with Malawaina, and my contact number is also on there, because we do need input, because it is the future, we need to protect it. So, long time ago, I received a call from Washington, and basically that there was consultation protocol meetings going on Pohakuloa. So they ended up calling off the consultation meetings because they were worried about a depleted uranium protest. And so it turned out that myself and Linda Fay, who's a depleted uranium educator, we ended up going, being invited, not knowing that it was canceled mid-flight. The PTA folks said, well, we can't have any discussions with any Hawaiians. So me and Linda looked at each other and said, well, do you see any Hawaiians around here? And both of us had blonde hair, and they said, no, well, I guess we can meet with you folks. So we ended up meeting at the CRM, then we went next door to the state park. But in actuality, that was an incorrect statement because the Hawaiian Kingdom actually did have people of many different races. So if they were referring to Kanaka Maoli, and that's your host culture, that's actually under the Section 106 when they have consultation protocol meetings and whatnot. And I just wanted to thank everyone for being here, a mixed group here. Basically, at this point, I will say we are all Hawaiians, but we need to take care of our Kanaka Maoli, and they are being severely taken advantage of right now. And obviously, I wanted to show you, these are the two, I did provide copies of this to Steve. These are documents that were actually given us directly from the Pentagon, from the liaison folks that came in for environmental training for consultation protocol. So I actually have training. I went to college, cultural resource management, and ended up helping out to do consultation in the Schofield PTA depleted uranium hearings between Native Hawaiians and Department of Defense. So what they did try to say, which is where my part came in, was, and looking at these documents, depleted uranium is not a categorical exemption. It cannot be exempted because it can cause environmental and harm to human beings, so they could not exclude it. So I typed up something for the military. So I just wanted to go in under, can y'all hear me okay? No. Okay, so number one, introduction. The Department of Defense is at a historical crossroads, a time to act, and for a turning point in regaining our honor and sense of justice as afforded the United States Constitution, which also recognizes treaties and nations. Whereas in the 53rd Congress, 3rd Session, House of Representatives, in Document 1, Part 1, Appendix 2 of Foreign Relations of the United States of 1894, Affairs in Hawaii, Washington Government Printing House of 1895, does prove the intent of the Commander-in-Chief as to the President's promise to restore the state of affairs in Hawaii. We should do so and make a grand celebration and prompt return. Under international law, the Hawaiians would have 2 years to fill vacancies for running a country once properly announced. And I did learn this when I went to international law class at UH, that basically the Hawaiian Kingdom was illegally overthrown and that a notice could be sent to the Security Council in a neutral country situation, no NATO, and then they would give 2 years to fill the vacancies, which can be found in Kamehameha III Statutes of 1845. It's actually available on the internet now, even down to the dog catcher and the postman. Okay, so number two, and this is also included in the packet. This is just a cover sheet from Foreign Relations of 1894. And there's other documents available, including naval correspondence, and other documents are available showing the proof of what the Queen said, what the President said. Okay, number two, cultural sites at PTA. DOD establishes, now I'm just quoting them. DOD establishes policy and assigns for Department of Defense when proposing action which may affect a property or place of traditional, religious, and cultural importance. The PTA has taken for military training, this is myself saying, without consideration of cultural sites within thousands of acres, culturally significant to Kanaka Maoli. Very few cultural and historic sites obtaining objects of antiquities have been documented. Some are not readily recognizable. Section 106 affords confidentiality as to why the site must be off limits, kapu, to live fire training or further destruction. The Department of Defense is not fulfilling its obligations to protect cultural sites under current conditions. Any expansion of PTA would be extremely disrespectful and cause further significant cultural site damage. The PTA does contain ancient village sites and burial grounds known to certain members of the Hawaiian community. They're in great distress for their ancient village. The following is from a meeting with consultation liaisons. The policy of Department of Defense states, the Department of Defense respects, and I'm quoting them, respects the traditions and cultures of all Native peoples of the United States, as well as the strong desire of Native Hawaiians to maintain their rich history and tradition amidst other prevalent influences in American society. B, the Department of Defense recognizes a special status afforded to Native Hawaiian organizations by the United States government through various federal laws, regulations, and policies. Comment, the Department of Defense are not actively complying by doing live fire training into DU oxide areas, RCAs, and PTA. The permit does not give public assurance nor follow the parameters of the lease. The majority of PTA has not been surveyed for historic cultural sites, and the water resources are not being properly protected. 3, NAGPRA, burials. In fact, a kapuna known as the Man of the Mountain has conveyed his grave concerns for continual bombing at PTA by USA and foreign country contracts. Bones are now exposed and fragmented, laying on the open ground. This kapuna has retrieved Eevee bones by putting the fragments into a gourd, and the long bones he wraps in a kapa, with 3 miley stems at each end of the white tapa, beaten within the layers. The Man of the Mountain has asked me to tell you this, and he says, paraphrase, tell the military Pohakuloa to stop bombing the Eevee. Tell them to stop the foreign countries from bombing the mountain. The pieces of the bones are getting smaller and smaller, and I will never be able to rest. I will be up there forever picking up the bones. It has been repeatedly impressed upon me there is great cultural unrest because of unfinished and unresolved problems at PTA. The current activities and posture of Department of Defense are causing cultural trauma to Kanaka Maoli. Bones are being destroyed and undocumented cultural sites are presently at great risk. 4, U.S. Department of Defense Instruction number 4710.03, Consultation Policy with Native Hawaiian Organizations. The Department of Defense has established certain consultations concerning protocols. In effect, the federal government has already federally recognized the Hawaiians in many different ways. The United States, through federal action, has established the basis for a government-to-government relationship. However, it must be noted that the Hawaiians are not a tribe on a reservation, nor a nation within a nation. Hawaii is actually a country and a legal independent nation-state capable of making its own treaties. The United States of America and Department of Defense have openly admitted to the essence of the Apology Resolution, Public Law 103-150, in their definition of Native Hawaiian on page 4, Native Hawaiian on page 13, and of the glossary. It is also very important to consider this when reestablishing better relations. DOD enclosure number 1 references actually refers to the Apology Resolution in Public Law and the overthrow of Hawaii. So in Department of Defense's own document, they're actually admitting to the overthrow. Comment, because the President of the United States of America in 1894 did promise Queen Liliuokalani the return of the constitutional monarchy, it would behoove the Department of Defense garrison to examine the Treaty of Friendship, Commerce, and Navigation and the Postal Treaty that was a treaty between two countries. The United States should return to its former glory and honor, setting at last peace between the United States of America and the Hawaiian Kingdom. Proper handling of the current situation at Pohakuloa area is crucial. Suggested improvements for consultations. The Kanaka Maoli and especially the Kapuna need more time to express themselves and their concerns at consultation meetings. 3 minutes and short comments which are repeatedly interrupted by Department of Defense consultation staff is disrespectful to the Kanaka Maoli, whose cultural definitions of consultations differs from Department of Defense. B, special meetings must be held with the Council of Chiefs, all royal orders, the Hoa Aina, Kanaka Maoli, distinct and separate from public meetings, because the genealogy, cultural content, kahuna lapa'au, papakilohoku, and other understanding of what it is to be a Kanaka Maoli differs from the general public. C, consultation with Hawaiian nationals. The Department of Defense recognizes the fact that the United States of America was involved in the illegal overthrow of the Hawaiian Kingdom, Ko Hawaii Pai'aina, which was made of people of many different races. I'm almost done. Department of Defense makes plain its knowledge and admissions of the USA guilt in the part of the overthrow, and therefore the Department of Defense cannot exclude people of other races from consultation meetings concerning public trust lands and Department of Defense actions on government or Crown Hawaiian national lands. V, existing lease violations and issues of concern at Pohakuloa training area. The general lease was signed by DLNR without agreement, compensation, or consultation with Native Hawaiians. The PTA lease states Department of Defense must do a fair market value assessment of the land, and this will be the amount that Department of Defense shall utilize in cleanup of shells and ammunitions. To this date, Department of Defense has never done a fair market value. C, training operations are supposed to be known and information readily available. The use of classified DU weaponry at PTA violated the lease. PTA denied use of DU at PTA, and then DOD said they forgot. Documents showed use of DU weaponry in the 1960s and on, and the NRC told me via phone call that they thought they had cleaned it up. Information, training plans, and bill of lading have since surfaced concerning amounts of radioactive materials brought into Hawaii. The use of DU and general weaponry has caused ground contamination from heavy metals and the DU. The PTA general lease states Department of Defense must avoid ground and water contamination. Further live fire training is compounding the situation, and there are also cumulative effects. Is that good? Okay. And then I think they went into a little bit about the DU, but I just want to impart upon you that while they're stating at this time, oh, it's less than 1 milliram and whatnot, actually what we're really concerned about is 1 particle of dust. That 1 particle of depleted uranium dust, if it gets in your lungs, it will stay in there a very long time and wreak havoc. And these are basically less than detectable levels. So that's something that they're not including in the Nuclear Regulatory Commission permit. They're not actually looking at that. And that at this time, we're looking at maybe some remedial action, maybe planting grass to keep the dust down, but at this time, Nuclear Regulatory Commission won't even allow that. So thank you very much, and Steve's got the packet. And thank you so much, House, for being here.
Mai ka pina kala mahae hae, ai kamo leo kala I le hua. Mai ka ve kiu ma mauna awa kia, ai ke kahi piko ma Pohakuloa pililoa iam Aupuni. Aloha mai kapo. So just saying, you know, from Ha'e where our beautiful sun Kanehualani rises, Tulehua where it sets from the peak, yeah, one of our people at Maunawa here, to Aupuni, another people, very, very close, right, as you had said, to Pohakuloa. I just wanted to say aloha to all of us. My name is Melanie Leila Dudley. I was born and raised in Pauahi, Hilo. And first off, I really wanted to say mahalo nui to all of those who have already spoken. You know, personally, I fully support you, mahalo Shelley, for sharing all of those facts. I really think that they speak for themselves. And mahalo nui to all of you on Haumana of class for being here and really taking that time to voice your opinions. It's really important, yeah, that we're represented in all of our many generations. Sorry, I'm also really nervous too, so please excuse the fluttering of the hand. That's why I wrote this whole time, you know. Okay, so I'm here today to speak of Aina and to speak of Vai. So Aina, that which feeds us, land, and Vai, land and ocean, yeah, not just our lands. And Vai, our water, our most precious resource. I want to talk about the consequences that the bombing has had on Aina and on Vai. Not to mention, I'm not going to speak of the grave consequences that this bombing has also had on our cultural sites, on our archaeological sites, all of the depleted uranium, and all of the other issues that the bombing has had on our Aina. So I stand here, yes, as a concerned citizen. I want you guys to know I'm trying to speak directly to the military, okay, so not to you guys. But I'm here as a concerned citizen, as a Kanaka Aloha Aina, one who loves the land and realizes, He ali'i ka Aina, he ka wā wale ke Kanaka. It is land who is chief, and we as humans who are merely its stewards. So from what I understand, the reason you, the military, are here on our Aina is to defend us as people, yeah? So I ask you, what are our basic needs to survive? We need food, water, and shelter, but mostly food and water. At one time, I am sure Pohakuloa provided us with food. The elama trees are native persimmon. Yeah, we call them elama in the Kekahavai Ole, the North Kona region. They once provided food and medicine for our people, as did many, many other of our native dryland forest plants. So, to the military, I ask you, where are the elama trees now? I'm sure that there are some, but they are now few and far between. So how can you say that there is no significant impact when it can be seen on the very surface level that there has been drastic and significant change without even thinking about the things that our eyes cannot see? "95% of our dryland forests have been lost. Most of these species have become extinct, and many of them are endangered. Yeah, as they become extinct, that's a relationship. Those are practices, a tradition that is lost. Sorry, I lost my spot. Let me get back, guys. The area of Pohakuloa was once home to these dryland forests. And you cannot say that in the last 70 years, you have not contributed to this statistic. What remains today in terms of plant life, our dear plant people, ohana and ancestors as we see them, are now but fragments. I'm really fortunate, and I'm humbled. I get to work in the Aupuni in Pohakuloa, which is pretty close to Pohakuloa. I'm humbled to work for the Department of Land and Natural Resources. So we're able to help restore these fragile and vulnerable dryland forest habitats. I'm sure that most of us know that studies have proven that plants react to what we say and do around them. Yeah, if we sing to them, give them names, show them aloha, and really give them just positive vibes, it's been proven that they grow better. And I guess, Let's get back to my spot. Sorry. Okay, so now let's think about the opposite. Yeah? How can you say that these same plants, they don't react to all of this, this negativity, this bombing and poisoning of this place that they call home? If we as people, as we plant, we can feel the bombing, can the plants not feel it? Is there no negative effect on our dear plant people? Now let's talk about vai, about water. It is said that we cannot survive without food for days, maybe weeks. Ask yourselves, can we survive without vai? Without water? Our whole culture is revolved around vai. Our term for richness or wealth, vai. A cinder cone, a hill of water, pu'uvai, is the term for our heart. Vayu is the precious vai that come from our breasts. And essentially, that's how our most young ones survive. Much of Pohakuloa is in the ahupua'a of Pauahi. Now I'm going to quote Hui Ma'alama Ikiala Ululi. They're restoring the ahupua'a of Koholalele. So if you guys haven't gone past, you guys should definitely go visit them soon. Noya on Hili, you'll just get even more passion. So they say Kauhe is the largest ahupua'a in all of Hawaii. The place name Kauhe can be translated as the bamboo, Ohe being the Olelo Hawaii term for bamboo. One interpretation of this place name links the function of the Ohe as a water container, or Ohewai, to the water held within this aina in the center of the island of Hawaii. Considering the location of Kauhe, encompassing the central saddle between Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa, where Pohakuloa sits, as well as the summit regions of both mountains, it makes sense that our kupuna would have understood the significant role this aina serves as a water container, like the Ohe, holding much of the source waters of the island's aquifer. A mo'olelo, our traditional story, tells us of Pohakuloa and Pohakuakane, who released vai from Waiau up on the peak of Mauna Awakea to Pohakuloa. Therefore, linking these sacred waters of Waiau near the peak of Mauna Awakea to Pohakuloa. Although it may not be apparent to the naked eye, Pohakuloa holds tremendous amounts of vai. It's one of our biggest watersheds on this island. Yeah? Of vai, our most precious and life-giving resource. You cannot tell us, or write in this document, that your bombing is not having an effect on this vai. Essentially, our aina, our people, our culture, and our language. Personally, I don't care how many mitigations you put in place. Because the loss of one of our most endangered ecosystems in the world, our dryland forest, as well as our precious vai, is once again the loss of our culture, language, a piece of who we are, and our ohana. Do we really need to get to the point of breaking Moanaliha, our groundwater table, our aquifer, as you did on Kanalua Moku, on Ku'olave? To continue doing this irreversible damage a'ole, we cannot go back. Ualava, walking. This needs to stop. It needs to stop, not in the near future, but it needs to stop now. Now I would like to address Muso Asya from Uncle Thomas Thomas. Me too, I hope to see more of us here. And I think as a young person, I hope to see more of our warriors, all of those people that go onto the Mauna, all of the people that fight against geothermal, all of the people who just, who aloha, we just love this place, this aina, where we are so fortunate to live. But there are quite a few of us. It's so nice to see all of us here. But there's no way as many people as I would have imagined. And recently I've also been more active. And I've gone to some of the meetings too. And I expect to see, my homies, the other people who have the same ideals. But I don't. Yeah, so just to tell you guys, especially you of Haas, that it's really nakako, it's our kuleana. Yeah, we cannot just think, oh yeah, there's that meeting, yeah, Thursday, Pohakuloa. They get them. They have all the Mauna Awakea people, they're going to be there. It's our role. So we really need to step into this role. And I think we do have all of this new technology now. So as was mentioned earlier, we need to use it and try to inform our ohana our friends, even those that we don't know, of what's happening, because many people don't know what is happening. And we need to let them know and provide ways for them to help. Mahalo.
Next, Gary. All right, and then after Gary, Danny. After Gary.
Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it. Nothing to adore. About war, there's nothing to adore. Kaho'olawe and Pohakuloa, the military must restore. Environmentally, they are masters of ignore. The Army treating our precious Aina like a whore. Their incendiary, lethal, noxious, heavy metal, I deplore. The Navy's Red Hill is leaking fuel, petroleum threatening drinking water, carcinogenic gruel. 200,000 gallons, a pillage of spillage. The USS Arizona still leaking 9 gallons of oil per day. But for homeless and mentally ill, we will not pay. How sad we sideline the poor. Tourists, how sad we build guided missiles that roar. Tourists cutely say, the Arizona is bleeding. Our outrage must continue pleading. Pearl Harbor, a toxic uranium fright. If oysters could glow, pearls would glow a radioactive light. Once a biotically sacred, fish-rich lagoon, 100 years of devastation. Navy, clean it up, soon. To be fun, light, and giddy, how I wish. Instead, we're eating out of a dirty dish. Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, making millions encouraging war. Forget our environment as Saudi arms sales soar. Active landmines buried on a Cambodia farm. One-legged peasants know their source of harm. Number of countries contaminated by landmines, 78. 20,000 deaths per year. Hideous bait. There's Boeing, Raytheon, and General Dynamics Corp. Chewing on them, sure ain't like chewing on gourd. Google them, send them a message from your heart. Perhaps then, their brains and souls will fart. Stir the pot, agitate, offend if you must. We've got to crack the Pentagon crust. The world's largest Kauai's Pacific missile range, turning barking sands into molding mange. Dropping missiles into the sea, testing and training. Our land is cemented, my heart is paining. Billions to fund our murderous DOD. Will you detoxify? Will you? I beg on bended knee. So Benedict Spinoza, whose birthday it was on November 24th, said, peace is not the absence of war. It's a virtue, a state of mind, a position for benevolence, confidence, justice. Thanks for listening.
So Kenny and then Steve, Balin afterward.
Aloha, my name is Andy Lee, I live in KL. It's good to be speaking a little bit late because all the fine points are already been made by all these great people, so I can make mine real short. So it will be short. Basically, now the reason they're doing all this training, even though they're, dirtying the place, spending billions of dollars, they always say, oh, it's for your own good, because it's for national security, it's for defending you guys. That's why we have to train, okay? But let me quote you from their own document. This is their mission, called the Depleted Uranium Update. Okay, listen to this. Our mission, in their own words, to provide the Army with the installation, capabilities, and services to support expeditionary operations in times of persistent conflict. Let me repeat. To support expeditionary operations. What does that mean? It doesn't mean defending here, the people here. It means to go overseas, to go intervene, to go invade. Is that the kind of training that they justify? That's what they say. So why are we doing that? So stop spending the billions of dollars and resources invading other countries, and then, of course, the people are going to be upset. That's why people come back and, and do bad stuff, because the U.S. Army is training to go invade, bomb everywhere else. So spend all the resources, stop bombing Hawaii, clean up, and get out.
Okay, try to make this quick. I'm a lunatic and I've been here about 40 years. And I remember when Jim...
Can't hear you.
Oh, it doesn't matter who I am, I'm Steve. But I am a lunatic. I lived in this area for 40 years, and I lived 10 years on Oahu. I went to school at the University of Hawaii. I used to work for the Division of Fish and Game, and I have been on the island of Pohakuloa, and I've seen all of the holes and everything's a big mess. It's atrocious. I mean, Hawaii real estate is just too valuable to blow up. Actually, the whole world is too valuable to blow up. Anyway, it turns my insides every time I think about it and hear and see all this stuff. And if you don't remember anything else that I say, I want everybody to keep this in mind. Because we have the military here, we are a target. We're the target of North Korea and anybody else that wants to shoot. If we could get rid of them, this island isn't worth shooting at, So that's one of the main reasons we should get rid of Pohakuloa. And I've got one other thing to say. It was about 70 years ago when this little old man, Gandhi, he went up to the British, he said, you guys are going to walk out of India and leave us alone. And if Gandhi could do that without shooting one bullet, I think that we can do it too. And I want to say, we all need to work together. And I'm so glad all these kids here are from the Haas School. I was on the board of Haas School way back when it first started. Unfortunately, I kind of fall asleep in board meetings, so I'm not a very good board meeting person. I have some form of narcolepsy, but this thing about bombing Hawaii is totally crazy. And I've read through a whole lot of these EISs. I've been to the Sierra Club and stuff. The whole thing is a whole lot of redundant double talk. They try to make it so impossible to know what they're saying, and they don't even know what they're doing. They just put that out because it's required. We have to just get in there and get in their face and keep answering all their bullshit. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So And it's just wrong. You know, we, eventually, right wins out. Because everybody knows in their heart what's right. Even those guys down there, most of them, they don't want to do that. It's just their job. They're there because they don't have anything else to do, and that's where they're getting their livelihood. And I have an alternative. Someone here was talking about what's an alternative. You know, there's thousands of square miles in Nevada that is just total bare land, bare rock. There's also most of the whole country of Australia, like 90% of it is just bare rock. There isn't anything growing. If you've ever been to Nevada, you can drive for miles and never see anything but sand. Maybe at the edges, there's places like Las Vegas and Reno where there's something where people live, but most of it's desert. I say we suggest or force them to go to Nevada if they have to blow up bombs. But in my opinion, shooting bombs off anywhere is moronic. It is absolutely insane. Why should we put our money out to blow things up? There isn't anything more crazy on the whole planet than to blow up some part of this earth. And the other part of that mountain up there is, actually I'm a biologist, I have a degree in biology, and I worked up there in Mauna Kea. We went up there and we counted the palila bird. They used to live all over where Pohakuloa was. Wherever there was a mamani tree, there was a palila bird. And now all the birds are just barely surviving at a certain place where there's a few mamani trees left on Mauna Kea. And when they made the highway through there, they said, well, we'll give you land on the north side of the mountain, and that'll be for palila. That's the mitigation. That's like telling Hawaiians to go and live in Alaska. How is that going to work? The army and the military and all the things they think of, most of it's crazy. And whoever said Pohakuloa is a dump, well, it is. It's an army waste dump. And we do need to get rid of it. And I don't know, keep working on chasing these things out. And it's not going to happen unless we protest every day. A really wise guy said that a soft answer turns away wrath or anger. But we have to just keep answering. You can't just talk softly, but we don't need to use any guns. We've got to keep working on this. And the idea of making this a nuclear-free Hawaii is really important. So, I have one other thing. I think the only thing that's really going to get them out of there, I'm afraid this is a pessimistic angle, but if Madame Pele rolls another layer of lava down there, that's about the only thing. It was like 1880 when one rolled down and went clear over the Saddle Road. So that would be the thing to pray if you pray to Madame Pele, which I don't, but if she sent down another one of those, that would be the thing to do. And the other, someone was talking about all the trees. Actually, I'm a very great fan of all the trees. And it's just atrocious that every time when they drop bombs and make craters and blow up all the trees up there, they don't come back. The place is a total mess. And when I was on Kaho'olawe, you walk around and you see huge craters. I saw craters so big, you could put this whole building in it. And there's craters everywhere that, like half the size of the room, those are all over the place. And one of the things I did up there was to plant trees. We planted ironwood trees. They found that it's the only tree that would survive in the area where we were planting. And most of the top of the island is a bare, hard, reddish, clay-like surface that nothing can penetrate. And they wouldn't let us use picks or shovels. So they blew holes with plastic explosive. And then we put the trees in the hole. Because I was with EOD people, explosive ordnance disposal people, went ahead of us. But so the whole thing was crazy. This was 1975. So, but we do need to replant it. We do need to take care of Kaho'olawe. We need to take care of this island, and let's keep protesting. Give those hard answers back to the Army, and We don't have to do anything to just keep up. It's like what it takes is eternal vigilance. Every day, everybody do what you can and say what you can and get these kind of videos out, because right now I know I'm preaching to the choir, but each one of you can go out and preach to the rest of this world. Eternal vigilance, no bombing in Hawaii.
Hello everyone, my name is Dave Sansone, and it is great to see everyone out here tonight. Yeah. So Pohakuloa, right? I was kind of appalled when I saw the notice that there's, a finding of no significant impact on Hawaiian culture. I mean, right? It's like a no-brainer in terms of what's happening up there and how obviously there's an impact. So, and then when I went to go and read the document, lo and behold, I couldn't open it up. Did anyone else have about that? Or no? Yeah. So basically, it was a junk link that was sent out. Maybe there's some other reason or whatever, but so we have a little bit of a communication problem, and it's been going on for generations. And this is what I saw when I was at the meeting about sonar, the Navy sonar thing. It was basically what I realized was, over and over, the military, if we're lucky, they come out and have a meeting, right? They're saying, no, you need to have a meeting. And who is the one making the decision? Who's the one writing the report? The military. The military is saying, we write this report, we find that there's no significant impact, so we're just fine. We don't need to consult with anybody else. And that's really not a good thing, because what that amounts to is being completely unaccountable. And if you think about it, if you know anything about abuse, that's what abusers do. They don't listen, number one. They force their way in and do whatever they want. And they're completely unaccountable. The world's largest aggressor, military aggressor, is up here bombing the water source for this island. They're also the world's largest polluter. No accountability. And what that pollution is doing is poisoning each generation. These are chemicals that accumulate in our bodies and cause effects. We have high levels of birth defects here, we have high levels of diabetes here, cancer, so many different issues. So I was thinking wow, how can they really say there's no significant impact when you can be deaf, dumb, and blind in Hawaii? I mean, here I'm from the U.S. I've been here for 7 years, and you really have to be covering yourself and just smothering yourself with misinformation to say there's no significant impact. So Prayer was not even trying to do any homework for this, and I happened to find some information about how they have an impact. And this is just reading about Hawaiian Ava. Okay, and this is the part with the cultural history, some Mo'olelo. So sorry if I don't pronounce some of these words right, but I'll do my best. So this is the story relating to Ava, and a couple characters were given some assignments to go out and do some tasks, and I'll just pick up in here. So at that time, Pohakuloa and Pohakuloa, guardians of the water, saw the water rippling and overflowing from the spring. As they went to investigate, they saw a shadow pass them by. Because of the overflowing of the water, the spring came to be called Kawaihu Akane, the overflowing waters of Kane. And so it remains to this day. Then I'll just skip a little bit, and then it says, Pohakuloa Kane then took the water he retrieved to the base of the cliffs of Mauna Kea and dug into the earthen plain of Pohakuloa and placed the water there. From Pohakuloa, the water flowed underground and appeared at springs at several other places, including Ana Ohiku at Hanakaumalu, and then it mentions the base of Kuala. So this is, it's ubiquitous to understand the importance of the land, the importance of the water for Hawaiian culture and for anybody here, really. So, that said, no significant impact. Okay, number one, the amount of land, 133,000 acres that's up there, how much of it is leased for $1 a year, or no, for 65 years? How much was stolen? Over 80,000 acres just taken by the federal government. Illegal land seized. I mean, and also, can't tell, I'm a little bit excited here. The occupation of Hawaii, the Kingdom of Hawaii being illegally invaded, continuing to occupy it. Major issues. As it's been mentioned, depleted uranium, continual bombing. The training of multiple nations here is a very dangerous thing. Number one, because it is training people to extend the U.S. empire. But if you're a student of history, you'll know that what happened to Rome, one of the reasons why Rome fell is that they were depending on other cultures to do their fighting. And then they basically had those people turn around and then attacked Rome. And that's a part of what brought Rome down. So the more the U.S. brings all these people in here to come fight, what's to stop them to turn around and say one day, well, we learned a lot from over there and we want that place. And those activities are putting us at risk. We hear about, tomorrow we're going to be hearing the siren for the nuclear weapons, where, we have a serious issue that's compounding by the day as more countries are invaded and bombed, with Hawaii being a hub. Hawaii is a hub for military expansion. It's just natural for other countries to want to stop it. And it's our responsibility, and it's my responsibility as an American citizen. I'm an Eagle Scout. I was born and raised to be patriotic, but I have no pride for what has happened, what the U.S. has done all around the world. The more I've learned about it, I have great shame. But there's a responsibility that we have to take because, first of all, the money is taken from us and then used to go bomb other people. So it's done in our name with our resources. And, to do nothing really is consent. Okay, so I don't really know the complete situation with this, but my understanding is that the U.S. commander here has a responsibility to be the protectorate of Hawaii, the Kingdom of Hawaii. This was back from Queen Liliuokalani's days. And they're responsible for the deoccupation, and also, I'd like to add, they're responsible for the rehabilitation of the land. So yes, the U.S. military does need to stop the operations. They got to stop the training, stop the bombing, provide the resources to clean up, and as it was mentioned, lead. Thank you.
So I'm an environmental anthropologist by trade, and so I've looked over a number of these environmental assessments and impact statements and such, and looking over this draft of this CRMP slash SBA environmental assessment is like looking over the assessments of the kinds of rules that govern over much of the lands of Hawaii. As Corey and others mentioned, there's a foundational erasure of the military takeover and legal occupation of Hawaiian lands. There's the distancing of land from people through outdated definitions of culture and methods of determining culture and cultural value. There's the discounting of impacts incurred by land and people despite findings scientific findings, and the framing of unethical treatment of people in place as a matter of law, safety, and national security. What appalls me most as an anthropologist is that the military and their partners continue to operate on a defunct 20th century mode of understanding culture as historic, buried, and dead. And that they hold themselves accountable for nothing beyond these quote-unquote resources. The goals and objectives section of this Pohakuloa CRM makes clear that nothing living is of concern, and that even the historic places, archaeological sites, and sacred sites are only safe to the extent that they do not interfere in military objectives. Beyond this, the ICRMP-EA can be seen as a practice in the crafty scaffolding of language and quote-unquote facts to create the impression that the U.S. Army garrison is working legally and ethically to care for place, shrouding the basic fact that their occupation and live fire practices detain human-place relationships from developing, and effectively obliterate land and everything connected to it. As it is written, this ICRMP and EA is at best an insult to the spirit of NEPA, the National Environmental Protection Act, which was developed in 1969. And this kind, in my opinion, this kind of partial and prejudiced scholarship, quote-unquote scholarship, is that which perpetuates the gravest ills of this society. Each of the human beings involved in the production of this draft and who will be involved in the determination of the legal standing of these documents and the effects of them are responsible for the lives, practices, places, knowledges, and gifts that will be lost as a result of these papers and the actions they allow. I have several hopes that the military holds itself and finds itself accountable, that there is an actual adequate assessment of the environmental and cultural resources in this area of Pohakuloa, and that this bombing of Pohakuloa stop. Thank you.
Hello, my God, go. I'm a school counselor at Pauahi Community Public Charter School in also aloha aina. And mahalo to all of our students and faculty and members of the public and aloha aina. Everyone who knows Hawaii, mahalo. There are a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. One of them is actually there are many, many good teachers in the Department of Education and in the charter school system, of which you guys are part of that are addressing many of the important issues. If you don't know, this past summer at the National Education Association, the NEA, which is the largest labor union of teachers, over 3 million teachers, the HSTA representation, they had 2 representatives from Hawaii, one from Mililani School and one from Pauahi Charter School, which is, I'm from Molokai and my children attended that school. They proposed an item of business to the NEA, which was approved and accepted. And that proposal was that the NEA would produce an article, and it says the NEA will publish an article that documents the illegal overthrow of the Hawaiian monarchy in 1893, the prolonged occupation of the United States and the Hawaiian Kingdom, and the harmful effects that this occupation has had on the Hawaiian people and resources of the land. So there are many, many dedicated teachers and people that are making efforts wherever they are. I think even Keanu Sai was like totally taken away with this action by the HSTA, like it came from a place that was totally unexpected. And the lesson is that wherever you are, if it's in sports, school, business, you have the power to make a change and to be a force for good. You don't have to be an activist per se. You just have to know what the issues are, do your research and your homework, and open your mouth. It's as easy as that. There are a couple of other things too. When you think about Hawaii as being the center of the military around the world, think about RIMPAC. Every 4 years, every even year, every 2 years, they're coming to Hawaii. Over, 14 to 17 different nations around the world come to Hawaii so that they can have a chance to test their military operations and bomb our waters and our land. Every 2 years. Now you think about the operations. Uncle was saying that they bring their B-52 planes from where is it? Missouri. So what is it, 8 hours, Missouri to here? One plane takes 300, maybe 400 gallons of petroleum and oil, gasoline, per hour. It takes 8 hours to get to Hawaii. So how many gallons of gasoline is that? How many flights is that? And then think about RIMPAC every 2 years. The amount of planes that are flying and bombing our waters. Now, you think that the world is going towards a more sustainable economy, a green economy, right? But the military is the largest polluter, the largest draw on non-renewable resources in the world. Why are we allowing our tax dollars to be used for activities that will essentially mean our demise? And I'm not even talking about me, I'm talking about our great-great-grandchildren, our great-great-great-grandchildren, your guys' great-great-grandchildren. Your tax dollars are going to go towards that. So if we want to make a change, we need to start standing up and being politically active in our communities, on a local level, at a state level, a fake state level, at a national level, at an international level. We have to be doing these things. Otherwise, it just means our own demise. As far as Pohakuloa and the Humu'ulu region, you know that 20 years ago, the hydrology reports of the area, they thought that the water table was, far down, right? 2012, Don Thomas did his drillings. Where did they find the water table? 500 feet below the surface. Are they doing testing of the effect of the bombing on our water? 500 feet. It goes from 500 feet to 1,800 feet below the surface. Do you think that some of the craters on Kaho'olawe are maybe that deep? If they are, can we imagine the type of things that are going on at Pohakuloa? I have been on Pohakuloa. I'm a part of a group that travels the ancient trails of Umi. We go every summer, and we do this for a week. And we spent several days traveling across Pohakuloa looking for the remnants of the Umi Trail and the Heiau of Umi. Everywhere where you go up there, you will find artillery shells, everywhere. And that's just from guns, like it doesn't even include the big things. My husband used to work for the department at Pohakuloa as a biologist. One of the reasons why he quit was because he knew what they were doing, that there are so many things that are being desecrated up there. You can go up to their own office and look in their office to see what kind of archaeological evidence that they have up there, and that is only a minuscule amount of what could be there that could be found. And it is in no way, in any shape or means, being taken care of. How can they say that there is no impact on our Hawaiian culture? It's a lie. I'm concerned because, frankly, we're at an impasse. We're trying to come up with solutions. A part of it is that not enough people are doing something about it. That's one part of it. A part of it is that we've allowed a government to take control, and essentially it's become an oligarchy, and we are at the mercy of an oligarchy. What happens in situations like that around the world? In other countries. Think about what they do in other countries in order to overthrow a despotic government. Are we willing to go there? What will it take? Do we believe in principles of democracy? Will we start writing? Will we start running for office? Will we start standing up and going to those political rallies and sitting outside our legislature doors? Are we willing to do that? Because that is what it will take. If we are not willing to do what Egypt has done, or other countries to rise up against despotic governments, what are we willing to do? And that's the part where it comes down to us individually. And so yes, as an educator, my students are writing in testimonies. We should be contacting all of our schools and sending them this information so that they're teaching this. These teachers are. They're teaching their students about the truth. You go to any Hawaiian language immersion school, they're teaching their kids the truth about Hawaii. And that's what we need to demand, is that our schools be teaching the truth. Mahalo.
Now I see how you feel. Aloha, everybody. My name is Mala Lant, and I live on the Hamakua. Well, thank you for saying so many meaningful things, and I'm here to represent the next 700 generations. I'm a midwife, a home birth midwife, and I'm here to represent gentle birth and how important it is to consider that. And so the military that I'm up against is called hospitals, institutions, and things like that, the ones that people feel like buying a house or buying a car is more important than their baby that's coming, and the food they eat, and the words they say, and what they do every day. So I'm here basically to say, please stop bombing Hawaii. Stop hurting things that are naturally to heal us, that are brought here naturally to heal us, and be able to take a moment in your day, just as my sister said, and just think about what it is you really want to stand for. And so the change, of course, that I'm representing, just like you're representing, is to choose peace, is to choose positivity, to choose inspiration, and to choose truth. But I also feel that this physically hurts me, or it's not hurting me, but it's hurting the mama, because I am the mama, and it's because it's hurting the men. I experienced my first death in my life by my sweetheart being killed in the war. And I knew about the war and everything, but when my sweetheart got killed in the war, I thought about how many people's sons that was. And so I have a bunch of sons. And so now I speak out for what we've done to the sons, what we've done to the men, and how they got like that, where this is more important than this. And you are me. You are the ones whose heart is vibrating with me. And we know who's listening. And so I'm here to just join hands with you and let you know that I can gather a lot of people together. And you all are showing me the steps that I can take in front of this force, it feels like. You know, but day to day, I'm nurturing oxytocin, which is the opposite than adrenaline. The kindness that we can give each other, and the tenderness. And it hurts me that men have to be taught how to kill and taught how to, that just the war, you know, just the weapons they use, and we have to put all of our care into that. You know, I would rather, like, you know, be gentle with each other. And, you know, I know that they're always fearful. Well, I don't choose that. So I know you don't choose that either. So I'm with you. Thank you.
And then Ron, you're up after.
Hi everybody. Aloha. Thank you for listening to our testimonies, and thank you guys for being here today. I've just seen so many beautiful faces of people that I knew. When I walked in, I thought I knew no one. But we're really in this together, and I've done a lot of traveling back and forth with different activist communities. And so it's really nice to meet these faces because we are so imperative for each other's survival. My ancestors are from this Aina and 1/4 Hawaiian, and another testimonial person spoke of their friends picking up the pieces of our bones where they are bombing, and those pieces of bones are my family members. So when you are bombing us, I want you to think about your grandparents and your great-grandparents and the backyard that you grew up in, because that is what you're doing every time you pass the paperwork over, every time you try not to listen to us. Because this is a turning point in our world. If we want to talk about national security, we need to talk about climate change and environmental desecration. If you want to help our people, you need to start building levees, because we are looking at a time of massive refugee crisis, massive starvation, massive war. If we do not stop right now, we need to look at our priorities and get grounded with what that means. It is difficult. We all have jobs to do. We all feel this attachment to our finances and our money. But at the end of the day, the money that we make with our work will not matter if our grandchildren cannot breathe the air, if our youth are afraid to have children. I'm afraid to have children, I'll be frank, because of the world that we're facing. There are babies running around here who are going to see massive climate change in the future if we do not do something now. And we have leadership in this world that thinks that racism and divisiveness and nationalism and fascism are the answers to our fears. And those ideas are so unfounded. The things we really need to be afraid of are our divisions and the messes that we need to clean up as a people. So that is what I ask of the U.S. military, is for each of you to look at who your boss is and forget that, because you are in charge of every action that you make as an individual. And you are the world. You are the answers to saving us. If we do not do something now, our planet will look like Venus in the future. That is the trajectory that we are seeking. If we do not realign our priorities, there will be not a microbe of life that can survive on this planet's soil. So it is not just Pohakuloa. Pohakuloa to me as a Hawaiian person is a symbol of a much greater international cry for help, of an indigenous cry for help, and of a cry from our ancestors and our future generations who will not have a world to live on if we are so focused on security and racism and nationalism that we cannot see. So someone earlier mentioned Black Flag. Black Flag is a reference to anarchism, and there's lots of other great punk bands in the world, but I think it's a really important thing to think about when we're talking about the ethics of our leaders and the ethics of people within the military system, which is the greatest polluter of the world, that if your superior tells you to do something that is hava, that is wrong, it is still your duty to ignore them. It doesn't matter, you know, when they look at psychological studies of Nazism, the people who were the best Nazis were the most obedient ones. The people who did the most atrocious things were able to do so because they passed responsibility on to others. They felt that because they were given orders to do something wrong, that it wasn't their responsibility because they weren't in charge. And that is the lesson of anarchism, that you are responsible for your actions. So it doesn't really matter if we have a president who thinks that racism is the answer. It doesn't matter if we feel powerless because the military has taken over our land. Every single one of us needs to stand up and fight that. So I thank you guys for bringing your children here and for bringing your youth and spreading this. Don't be alone in your activism. Share this with other people because every person in your life has a heart and a mind, and every person in your life should be here tonight and should be at every meeting and every rally. So I hope we grow ourselves. Thank you.
My name is Leah Galker. I'm from Pauahi. I'm also a teacher at Haas. I'm so happy to see all of you here today. Like everybody else in this room, the heaviness, the eha of Pohakuloa is obvious to me. But I came here tonight specifically to speak about this EA, which is completely insufficient. The environmental factors not analyzed in this EA include water quality, geology and geography, hazardous waste site contamination and cleanup, noise, just some of them. There's more. So even what their cultural resource management plan encompasses doesn't encompass some of the most critical components that they will need to clean up. My children are outside, I'm sure you all know this, but it's one of the first things you teach your keiki is to clean up after yourself. And the bombs are the problem, the bombing. And that's not even part of their plan, it's not even in this document to address. They have other things they address, air quality, soils, they say water resources, invasive species. And it is because of activism that this document is created, that is mandatory for the military to produce these types of things, to have this branch of that entity to address these issues. But this is completely insufficient. It says in here that in the Pohakuloa training area, there are 1,198 known archaeological sites. 39 have been designated as qualifying for historic preservation protections. However, only 20% of the direct impact area has been surveyed for cultural resources. No sacred sites have been designated, of course, because they only surveyed 20%. And that's not of the 123,000 acres, that's of the direct impact site. So they haven't done their duty.
to even survey what they're supposed to survey. They said their management plan is to provide streamlined direction for routine activities that may have an impact. Throughout this thing, this entire document, 100-something pages of it, they have a proposed action and a no action alternative. Majority of the proposed actions have nothing to do with them doing it. It's just connecting all the dots of the agencies that are already mandatory legally in place. And they're not doing that. So this document is a farce. It's they acknowledge how important this INA is. They spell it out. They know the laws. Half of the first 100 pages is going over all the laws that pertain to this area. And yet they still really take no responsibility to do what they are legally obligated to do. And that is what I want to say to the military. That is what my testimony tonight is about. This document is insufficient.
Oh.
And yeah, I want to say too that, you know, I'm really grateful for all of you being here, especially all my Haumana. I know some of you sincere little babies. And you know, I'm a single mom with 2 kids, and I still drove out here tonight in the rain after after we did work, because it's so important. And thank you for coming tonight.
Hey, hello. Thank you.
Okay, before I call on Fujoshi, who graciously let me go, I'm going to just address the Haas kids one more time before you guys go, because I know you guys gotta go. It's kind of long, yeah, you guys? You think the Army wants to hear all this? No? But they don't want to hear all this. I didn't have a meeting. But the whole thing is, you gotta make them listen. The Army, the government, the state, the county, all these kinds of governments, they pass laws behind your back. They write long documents, confusing documents, so they can do whatever they want behind your back. But you guys gotta make yourself heard. You gotta make them listen. You guys gotta look at these documents and learn to read between the lines, because they're gonna pull all kinds of things off. And if you don't say nothing, that's the same as consent. So, in the next 3 years, you guys, think about what you're doing. You know, you don't have to necessarily do this, but care. Thanks, guys, for being here.
Looks like George Woods. Yeah, the doors over there. I know it's not just so I thought I wasn't able to even speak. Okay, everyone.
Occupy Hawaii on YouTube.
Thanks for coming, you guys. Hang in there. Hang in there, have fun, be active. My letter.
Occupy Hawaii on YouTube.
I'm saying might be repetitious, so sorry about that.
I taught every district on the 14 years. I took formally education 14 years, but renew my contract. So this is what I have to say. She might be. She's not.
On their way. We just want to hear what
I want to hear what you say. Bye, guys.
Sorry, Ron. Let me start all over again. My name is Ronald Fujiyoshi. Until January 1st, I was the pastor of the Ola First Hawaiian Church. So I'm retired now.
Okay.
I wanted to focus on FONSI, which means finding of no significant impact. And everyone has said what the farce it has been, and this is inadequate. Just the presence of the U.S. military here in Hawaii is of huge significant impact, right?
Definitely.
And it started from the very first part in history. I think even in this document, it talks about, we know that the Army base in Wahio is called Schofield Barracks, right? So who is Schofield? Major General John M. Schofield in 1873, okay, when Hawaii was an independent nation, was sent on a secret mission by the Secretary of War, William Belknap, to investigate the strategic potential of the United States presence in the Hawaiian Islands. Okay? So a foreign country sent a Secretary of War, sent a Major General on a secret mission to find out why they're going to use Pearl Harbor for its significant impact for the whole Pacific region. And that's exactly what's happening, right? So what can you say? Finding of no significant impact. That's a farce, right?
Yes.
Now, I was really honored that Lance Larson invited me as a guest to The Hague, Netherlands, on December 7, 8, and 11 in the year 2000 to participate or listen in on the Permanent Court of Arbitration. People talked about Keanu Sai. Well, Lance Larson was the one who sued his government for not protecting him when he was following Kingdom of Hawaii laws. And even then, in 2000, that's 17 years ago, what they found in that hearing was that it verified that the Kingdom of Hawaii exists, still exists, legally. And secondly, that the U.S. military has an obligation to apply not their laws, but the kingdom laws while you're invading. In other words, after World War II, U.S. government had to use Japanese laws to administer Japan. So U.S. government has to recognize kingdom laws while it's occupying Hawaii. That's international law, and that's not what they're doing, right? And so that's what is so important. I think those of you who were here at the Boys and Girls Club just this weekend when Keanu Sai announced that they had these fact-finding investigations that were scheduled for January 16th and 17th in Honolulu were postponed because U.S. government evidently is involved in at the Permanent Court of Arbitration to subvert this fact-finding investigation. And so it's very important historically what is happening right now. But what does this mean for Pohakuloa? Now the PTA or Pohakuloa training area is made up of 3 large parcels of land totaling, well, you say it says about 133,000, right? 107,833 acres are made up of 3 parcels, okay? The first parcel of 758.3 acres was supposedly ceded to the U.S. Army on January 26, 1956 with Executive Order 1719 by Samuel Wilder King, Governor of the Territory of Hawaii. So, okay, that's the first large portion. The second large portion, now this first portion, is within, as some people said, within the Ahupua of Kauhe in the district of Hamakua. Okay, remember that. Ahupua of Kauhe in the district of Hamakua. The second piece of land is 84,057 acres, is again supposedly ceded to the U.S. Army on August 15, 1964 with Executive Order 11167 by Lyndon B. Johnson, President of the United States. That's the second largest portion. And this land is made up of portions of the government lands of the Aupuni of Pauahi and the government lands of the Aupuni of Puana in the District of Kona, and the crown lands of Humuula. Okay, those are the three that make up the second portion. The third portion, which is Kuching and Maxine have done this case, are related to the lease of this third portion. This third portion is of 22,971 acres, is supposedly leased on August 17, 1964 by the state of Hawaii to the United States of America with the general lease number S3849 dated August 17, 1964, and was signed, it's a sign between the state of Hawaii and the United States government administered by the Board of Land and Natural Resources. So this is the lease that's going to expire. Now this land is made up of, again, portions of the government lands of the Ahupua of Kauhe in the district of Hamakua, the Ahupua of Puana Hulu in the district of Kona, and the crown lands of Humuula in the district of Hilo. Okay, the point is this: if the findings of the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague are correct, that the Kingdom of Hawaii was never lawfully incorporated into the United States, and that it continued to exist as a matter of international law, and as a territory occupied by another nation, the U.S. military has an obligation to apply the laws of the Kingdom of Hawaii, then the executive orders by the governor of the territory of Hawaii, President of the United States, and a lease are all illegal. Yeah, that's the point. So, the government lands, see, it's because the Kingdom of Hawaii Mahele laws of 1848 are still operated today. Yeah? So the government lands and the crown lands of the Kingdom of Hawaii, lands of a neutral nation, were never meant for foreign military use, to use for military training, right? So that's why this fact-finding thing is being postponed, because it's a threat to what's going on, and it ties into exactly what's going on. So I won't talk about anything else, but what I'm just saying is that even on the smaller scale of this EA, but definitely on a wider picture, this environmental assessment to claim that there is a finding of no significant impact is just impossible, right?
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
Good evening, aloha. My name is Katie Benjamin. I had to come late this evening, and so I just want to thank everyone who's been here for all these hours. Really appreciate taking the time to speak and also the time to listen to one another. I'm a little saddened that the students left because my day was in a public school, not a charter school. I'm a substitute teacher at Waiakea High, and I was co-teaching today, which basically means for a sub you do nothing, you just be a student, you sit, you listen. And today I was in US government, where students were learning about imperialism, specifically US imperialism. And it brings me great joy to know that there are teachers, I've been an educator for a long time, that are educating about these things and seeking out the truth and seeking history from a perspective beyond just the colonial regime, looking at the stories of actual people. But I have to say, disturbingly, that that is not the case in our public schools in Hawaii. It's very challenging for me as a protector and as someone who's very vocal to find myself in institutions. And I stay in the DOE because as a substitute, I can get away with a lot. I can talk to students and I can have actual relations in a way that their teachers don't always have. I'm not totally blinded by the DOE system because I think it's a bunch of bull. So I'm an insider, right? Hopefully the DOE doesn't kick me out because of saying that. But today, the teacher was talking about how, who are victims of imperialism? And the students these days are not terribly engaged. They're just like a second away from being in their screen, a second away. You know, so she's listing, is trying to get involved. Was Hawaii a victim of imperialism? And they're like, yeah. Was Guam? And she's going through, basically just feeding them answers. A couple kids got a little more excited about Hawaii, but most did not. And she said that though all these places were victims, right, of American imperialism, that, quote unquote, we all live with the privileges of imperialism. Which completely and totally wiped away any chance for a student in that room to feel differently, right? I'm a little bit upset because when I was in school, I was always real loud and real bossy and real like, no, that's not the case. I'd fight with any teacher who sounded like an idiot, right? Because there's plenty of them, right? There's idiots everywhere. And I didn't hear one single student stand up all day, and it ripped my heart out. You know, I didn't even see like that squirmy look of the student just like sulking because they want to say something but they don't have the power or they don't feel like they can. They were just totally unfazed. So I spoke up in a way that wouldn't get me kicked out. You know, I tried to engage. When I'm alone, it's a lot easier. So thank you to the educators in the world for doing their work. When I think about Pohakuloa, everything that comes up in this room is important. The environmental impacts, the cultural impacts, the threat we are facing by putting a big bullseye in the middle of the ocean. Hey, look, we're America, come bomb us, right? They're really real threats. But when I look at Pohakuloa, when I drive across Korakona, I see genocide. I see the remnants of what was taken away from the original people of these lands. So after thinning the population through violence, through disease, destroying language, making it illegal to practice cultural practices, the next big part is the indoctrination, right? We see the DOE, right? Comes in, play pretend like we're all Americans, say the Pledge of Allegiance every day in school, in an occupied land, right? Well, the next stage of that is if you're going to truly create a genocide against a people, well, we've seen genocides time after time again. They never kill everybody. You're not actually very effective at eliminating populations. But then you gotta move in your own. And so when I see the military testing up there, I live in Hilo, I live 2 blocks from here. And there are, for those of you who are living out in the country, there are new planes landing and flying out of Hilo Airport. Military planes, jets going off at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., all hours of the day and night. We all know the schedule of Hawaiian Airlines and when their first plane is and when their last plane is. And in the hours between those planes, there are massive amounts of air traffic coming through Hilo. It's a disturbance to all of us, and it creates an insecurity. A military presence is there to remind you of how small you are. When you see these jets, I saw one that must have been one of the giant ones that you put planes inside of to fly. I couldn't even understand the physics of how it was in the air. When you see that, that is to remind you of how small you are. When they put the razor wire up, it is to remind you that you can't. Well, we are the proof that you can. That we are not alone. That we can actively make these people have accountability. It isn't easy, because as abusers, they don't want to be accountable. If we think back in not so distant history, if our lifespan is 80 years, right? It's a generous take. Say even it's 50 years. Let's go down. Because a lot of people, especially our indigenous people, are facing lower lifespans. It's very, very important. So if it's 50 years in your lifespan, 500 years is how many generations? 10. Okay? We talk about the 7 generations. In 500 years, the North American continent was completely and totally ravaged and changed through those same practices of genocide. Come in, decimate a population, make it illegal to practice your culture, move in your other people, change what the narrative is, change what the history is. We're America. So the answer, in my humble opinion, is that we look to the time before that invasion. Lots of the early settlers who are going over, they didn't want to be part of an imperialist nation because they were fleeing, right? Well, it didn't take terribly long for them to change their mind. For the people over here or over in the US to be entitled. If we look back to the indigenous people of this land, of Turtle Island, of all lands, they have answers. And so it is our job, it is our settler kuleana, if we choose to be here, to amplify those voices, to look to them for the answers, because what has happened in the last 500 years, the Industrial Revolution, the mass militarization of the world, and the rise of one of what will go down in history as one of the most violent, most horrendous cultures of American militarism. Thank you.
Oh, all this talking that I did, and I haven't even actually testified yet. Okay, my name is Pauahi, for the record. Most of the most salient points have already been covered, so, you know, after going through this whole document, I was able to narrow it down to one statement that really says everything about this. And this is in section 5.1, page 56. It states that preservation of historic properties is encouraged, but not a mandated outcome of the section 106 process. That says it all. That's it. I mean, that's the reason that we're here today is because we have vastly, drastically different priorities than the Army. And then all these military operations that are going on here, where the land itself is the priority. But as far as the military mission is concerned, the land is secondary. And I don't think that there's no further common ground once you hit that point. You know, something else that I want to point out is to do with sacred sites, and why they say there are no sacred sites. I was able to find the how they define a sacred site. And this says, this executive order envisions discrete locations on federal lands identified by authoritative representatives as sacred by virtue of established religious significance or ceremonial use, rather than addressing a generalized sense of sacredness throughout the landscape. That's on page 42 in section 3.1. That's how they can say that there are no sacred sites. And this entire document is rife with misleadingly narrow definitions. That's why we're all freaking out, because we're saying, what do you mean no finding of no significant impact? But within the definitions of these documents, strictly within these documents, no, I suppose that the implementation of the plan itself and doing all these consultations and whatnot in itself isn't necessarily going to have a significant impact. But that's all aside from all the bombing and all the excavations and all the training construction and the live fire and all that. All that aside, the plan itself, oh yeah, that's nothing significant. No. And so, I'd like to close this out, and I'd like to read from a couple of different laws, one of which is not American law. This is actually from the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And this is specifically to do with military activities. It says that military activities shall not take place in the lands or territories of indigenous peoples unless justified by a relevant public interest or otherwise freely agreed with or requested by the indigenous peoples concerned. States shall undertake effective consultations with the indigenous peoples concerned through appropriate procedures and in particular through their representative institutions prior to using their lands or territories for military activities. Now, if we've read the ICRMP, yes, there's lots and lots and lots of consultation going on with OHA, with SHIPI, all these. But what I had to realize is that consultation is not consent. I'm going to refer really quickly to United States Public Law 103-150. I believe this is a whereas clause number 25, paragraph 25, however you want to cite it, where it says, and this is also in response to their really, really lackadaisical historical context portion of the ICRMP, but whereas the Republic of Hawaii also ceded 1,800,000 acres of Crown, government, and public lands to the Kingdom of Hawaii without the consent or compensation to the Native Hawaiian people of Hawaii or their sovereign government. We did not consent. I do not consent to this. And even if I were to say that, oh sure, finding no, I'm not going to say take no action, but I'm not going to endorse this ICRMP or the EA because I do not consent, and neither do we. Mahalo. Alright, mahalo everyone for coming. We go all kuiluna and money this thing properly. I didn't return your call the other week.